Okay.
That Sanders spent a lot of time, especially at the closing days of the campaign. In fact, spending as much time in Virginia and the week leading up to South Carolina as he did in South Carolina. The Sanders campaign felt that they had a number of games in Virginia. He spent time both in Northern Virginia and Richmond.
All right, welcome everyone. Let me get rid of this screen here to the Jacobs Institute Changemaker Challenge webinar. It's our third one, and tonight we'll be discussing the prototype phase. So thank you again for joining us. Okay. Hold on one second. Oh, there we go. All right, let's, no, it's going backwards. Oh, okay, here we go. All right, we got it figured out over here. Tonight we're gonna go over just a recap of the timeline review. We're gonna go through the Storyteller Awards reminder, progress check, and then we'll take some time to go through the prototype phase, and then we'll take any questions that you may have. So let's take a look at our timeline here. We are on, of course, today, March 3rd, prototype webinar. And we will take some time to see how things are going with you all and to go into some of the details in regards to the activities for prototype. Our next webinar will be pitch, which is March 31st. Just keep in mind that the video pitch deadline is coming up soon on May 1st, and then we will announce the winners on May 16th. We would like to thank all of you who have submitted thus far the Storyteller Awards. We've awarded, how many, Monty?
I think 5 or 6.
About 5 or 6.
But
okay.
We continue to get new ones in. They're incredible. I mean, really, from the bottom of our hearts, it's not just about the awards. I know that that's going a long way in some cases and actually motivating some students, which is great. But it helps us see some of the work that's happening and for you to share with others. And I see some amazing stuff happening. And so it's, thank you.
Has anyone on our webinar today received any awards, Storyteller Awards? Maybe muted. Yes, Sasha? Awesome. And how did your students like that?
They were very, very excited. The funny thing was they said, each of us? I said, no.
Sorry, you have to share, but hopefully that.
But yeah, they were very excited and motivated. And it's funny because it's my girl teams. I have 2 all-girl teams.
Nice.
That are really, kind of making the boys look bad.
Awesome.
That's funny.
We're okay with that.
Yeah.
So the other groups are now getting motivated because now they're trying to be competitive with the girls, obviously.
Ah, okay. So it's prompted some motivation. Extrinsic rewards always help.
Absolutely.
That also happened today. We just received the card today and I put it in. This is Jenny Miles. Exactly the same thing. The boys went, what? Okay.
Mom now. Well, that's awesome. Well, we would just want to encourage you to go ahead and continue posting on our social media channels. There's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and just make sure you use the hashtag JI Changemakers. We will continue awarding those throughout the competition. All right, we wanted to take a moment to recap the ID8 phase, which we discussed during our last webinar. And just a recap of what ideation is, it's just where the students are expected to state the problem and brainstorm unique and original solutions about their selected global goal, eventually narrowing it down to one. And we wanted to get an idea of how the activities in our curriculum have been working for your students. And so we have a few questions, and just like last time, feel free to chime in and let's talk about it. So the first question is, how are your student teams progressing through the ID8 phase? Are they still in it? Are they finished? I want a little bit of feedback from you.
And if it's easier for you to put in the chat, that's okay too. We're able to look at both. So,
yeah.
To be truthful, we're just starting it.
Okay.
Okay. We appreciate truthful. That helps us as well.
Anyone has, is there, oh, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. It's Asha over here. They are in the phase. They are doing the research and trying to find like somebody that they can talk to. So I guess they're through that design process, but they haven't really have a concrete idea yet. They're going through the ask, the imagine, and the create process right now through the engineering design process.
Okay. Anyone else?
Seeing some comments in chat, fluctuating between ID8 and understand, really working on pushing the idea that it is not a linear process. That is great. I'm wondering if there's anything you need, or is it just, that's just how it's playing out in your classroom? And I see Valerie's comment, having groups in various stages, I've told them to move along if they get stuck in one area. And Colleen, still in the middle, our librarian came in to help them learn more about where they can research. I think my students need more accountability along the way to have a push to get it done. Right, and that makes sense to us. I think the question that we would all say, is there anything in the content curriculum or in the timeline that is either helping or hindering that process, or something that you need support with, or is it just, here's where we are, we're working on it, we're moving along? Fair enough. And I only see the kids once a week. They research and move forward with an idea, then realize they need to rethink something. Kids are engaged. That's fantastic. We couldn't ask for anything more.
Okay. All right. Well, our next question is, were the ID8 activities, at least one, frame the problem, one, go broad, and one, go narrow, helpful to your students as they go through the phase? I know some are still at the beginning, but for those who have started and maybe found yourself midway or maybe finished, are the activities really helping them to ideate?
Valerie says yes.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Valerie. Anyone else? Any feedback that we need to consider there? Anyone else?
No.
No, okay, all right.
Activities are helpful. Different groups are using different strategies.
Okay.
Straightforward and allows them to take it step by step. That's fantastic.
Okay, that sounds good. Well,
I will say, just to chime in, and one of the reasons we're asking these questions, and for those of you along the way, if you encounter something in the content, in the app, obviously we've had a couple technical things you've heard about lately, but if you're seeing something in the activities that either you think could be improved or changed, or you think it's in, please just drop us a note. There's a contact us link button at the bottom. Any comments you have along the way, including on the curriculum and content, we're open to that. Could be good compliments. It could be also, hey, I wish it was different, or a different order, or different phrasing, or anything along those lines. We're getting that from some of you, so it's awesome, but I just want to keep encouraging that.
Okay. And throughout your progress impactful, we just want to continuously ask what things have been working well for your students. Are there any challenges that you've encountered thus far? And it could be on anything in the program.
Colleen has a great suggestion, Alina. Maybe we can talk about this offline in a follow-up.
Okay.
It's hard for me to know what the activities are. As a teacher, I would really like a folder with more of an outline for me, so I don't have to go through the sample project to see what my students are seeing.
Okay.
So.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
One note that may not be obvious that will tell you, Colleen, and others, I know obviously you have to go through a sample project, or you could go through one of their projects and see the same activities. It may not be exactly what you're looking for. If you do create a project that doesn't have any value, as long as it hasn't had any documents attached to it or any phases that have been submitted, you or anyone on the team can go delete those projects. So any projects that are lingering out there that don't have any progress, if you go to the edit option for a project, there'll be a delete button. If it has progress, either the team has attached documents or a phase was submitted, you cannot delete it through that's intentional. You cannot delete it through the app, but if you need something removed, you can contact our support link at the bottom and we can take care of it.
Is that a file too? Because now that we were able to add files, a student accidentally put the wrong thing in their folder, and we were trying to figure out how we could delete, take it out of the folder, but we couldn't find it.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't do that in the app right now. So if you just want to drop me, click on the contact link or just drop me a note, I can remove that for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The kids like having the guideposts on each phase. Self-pacing and outline would be good to add to the teacher's guide. That was Lisa. I had to create my own. So we can, this is great feedback. So
Okay.
we can add those kinds of things. That's really helpful.
And is there anything that would be helpful to you from the administrative team in the future as your team progresses? And if you don't have anything now, that's okay. But just remember that you can always email us through Packful, and we will address any concerns or any questions that you may have.
And Colleen, to answer your question, I tried to go into theirs and see where they are, but I can't see anything until they've submitted. So this may be a workflow thing a little bit. Student teams, the way this was designed to work, and I realize this is part of the feedback we're getting. Student teams are encouraged to link their documents. When they feel like they're ready for feedback from the teacher, then they can click the submit for feedback. That can be either they have completed the phase, or they've just started an activity, or they've completed one activity. You may be guiding them to tell them what expectations you have. That's really their indicator to you that, hey, we've done some work that we would like you to review. Once that happens, the teacher on your dashboard, there'll be a call to action on the Ready for Review tab that says, hey, a student team submitted a phase for review. Then you can look at the documents and make comments and send it back. You can do that earlier too if they've linked documents, but it's really not, we don't know, and you obviously wouldn't either, if they're ready for review or where they are. But until they've linked it, we don't know where they are in their progress.
I just wanted to build off of Valerie's comment that she had created a spreadsheet document for tracking progress. And that sounds, Valerie, like you're doing it across the class. So maybe you have columns set up for each of the activities they're supposed to turn in, and it's kind of like a checklist thing, an aggregated report. And so that's, Monty, we've talked about building something like that, but it's definitely coming up. Like, how do you, as a teacher, how do you get that big picture quickly of not just the phase progress, but the individual document progress?
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, trust me, I understand, Valerie. We played with different ways to show progress, and we were challenged because different teachers might use different activities, or groups might use different activities. But I think going back to that idea of a master tracking document that just lists all of the activities and which groups completed which ones might be helpful.
Yeah, and Valerie, I may follow up you separately just to kind of get a sense of what you're doing to make sure I fully understand, and then that will influence like the work that we do in the future. And it may be an opportunity too for me to kind of see what you're seeing and see if there's already something that we can make available to you.
Okay.
But I made that note. Thank you.
Any other comments or suggestions before we go into prototype? All right, we'll keep it moving. All right, tonight we're going to talk about prototype. And prototyping means to design, build, and test your solutions. It's a time when students will also get feedback from others. So there's a cycle between designing, building, and testing to continually rework and iterate to improve solutions until it meets the needs of their users. Impactful, there are some suggested activities that the students may complete. Just so you know, there's one for, well, we are suggesting that students complete at least one activity for design, one activity for build, and at least one for testing. And we're going to go through the activities with you. So first, we're going to start with design it. Students are required to design a 2D or 3D model for their prototype. These models can be physical, and they can also be digital. And we'll talk about a little bit about the ways that you can go throughout doing this through the Packful activities. So let's start with, and to the right of the screen, I have the actual activities in Packful for the prototype phase. And these are specifically the Design It activities. So the first activity, called Design It 2D Model, requires students to create a 2D model. They can either use pen or paper. They can also use digital graphic software. And that could be Photoshop, InDesign, Capterra, GIMP. It could be as complex as that, or it could, like I said, be pen and paper. Any means to get to the two-dimensional model. It's important, of course, that students label all their features and all parts of their prototype. And keep in mind that it is also an option for students to upload a photograph of their model into Packful as well. In activity 2, the 3D model, students have the option to create a 3-dimensional model using crafts or office materials. They can use recyclables, clay, Legos, or they could even use 3D design programs such as Tinkercad, Tilt Brush, even Google Blocks. Again, it is important for students to include all of the features and labels for their model. Are there any questions here? So we recommend that they at least do one of these 2 activities.
Can I comment on that while we're
Absolutely.
at that phase? Because we've had a lot of discussions around sometimes solutions aren't always a physical object. It's not a widget. It's not that type of thing. A solution might be an action campaign that they want to execute in their local community, or a YouTube channel they want to build to get the message out, or with teachers, it might be curricular solutions, right? So when it comes to, we've gone through a lot of discussion around what are we talking about when we're modeling those types of solutions, and what are the initial steps if kids are coming up with things on solutions that aren't physical objects or engineered objects. And so I think it's fair, you know, at this point, if I'm developing a solution like a local action campaign, that at this stage designing it might be just mapping out the specifications in a Word doc, that I'm going through just creating an outline, right? I don't know if, can you all just share the types of solutions that your kids have come up with in the past or coming up with now, and your thoughts around design in relation to physical objects versus more project-based work?
I know one of my students was, one of my teams was going to be doing something like the action thing. They can actually do that in a 2D model. They can show, you know, like that they're at the beach or wherever they're going to be, and with signs or whatever, and then they can have like information off to the side. This is going to be our campaign, whatever. I could see where it could still be a number 1.
So still modeling out the vision in their mind.
Yeah, and it's just in a picture version, that's all.
Right. Actually, I think, was it somebody in your class that had the sustainable city drawing that was on Twitter? That was so cool.
No, that's not me yet.
They were working on the sustainable cities goal, and had kind of drawn their you know, vision of a sustainable city. So yeah.
Hi, this is Maria. So I have 2 students that are sort of doing action campaigns, and I hear what I think it was Sasha who was just talking, was saying it could be a visual model, but I think, I mean, I would prefer to leave it up to them. As I guess my one concern is like I don't want to have them do busy work that isn't really valuable to their end goal. So one of my students is doing an editorial campaign to raise awareness about all of the government waste and how we can use that money to build a more sustainable environment. And so she sort of has a plan for what each of her editorials is going to be, but like I don't see the value in that being a visual model. And then I have another student who is working on, she really likes music, so she interviewed kindergartners and kindergarten teachers and found out what they knew about sustainable development goals, which obviously is limited. So she is going to be writing songs. She writes her own music and then creating songs to teach kindergartners about the different issues that our world is facing and how they can be part of the solution. Again, I'm not really sure if a visual in that sense would be helpful to her.
Can you share how she did design it then? Like, how did she let you know what the songs were or what the plan was? What form did her design actually take?
Well, so she's at the point where she conducted the interviews, she got feedback. We had a meeting to talk about what she wanted to do, and that's kind of where we are right now. She didn't start writing anything yet, but her original plan was to go in and write songs about different science topics, and then she realized that stuff's already out there when she did a lot of the research. And she's like, you know what? There's nothing out there that teaches little kids about the Sustainable Development Goals at their level.
Yeah, it's so cool. I was just thinking about like it's like writing a book, which would be like the build it phase, but normally before an author writes a book, like they'll usually do an outline of the chapters, right? And
yeah, so I think that's what she started to do today, was look at what goals would make sense to start with, how many does she want to try to tackle within the time frame that we have, and then I could see her like building an outline like that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah,
I think we were just challenged on how to best communicate, thinking about design phase given the type of project that the student was working on or solution.
Yeah, in my mind.
And I think what I would like to do is go back to her and ask, like, for the design phase, yes, we need to meet the criteria of the project, but in her mind, what makes the most sense? So as a musical artist,
right,
how has she sort of planned other things she's done, and how can we take that and use it as her design model here?
And I could even think of like parts of the song, you have the title of the song, the lyrics, the chorus, there's a reprise, she could outline it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Okay.
That's great. And we, we did just, we were talking about the content and the curriculum here too. And part of this is just making sure we've got the right intentional flexibility, but also the scaffolding in place that allows them to complete it. So as we go through this, if you discover something where you're like, hey, it would be better if we just added some extra text or new activity to kind of cover that, that would be helpful information as we proceed, as you proceed to. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. Okay, well, we're going to move on to the build it.
The fun part.
Yeah, building it, getting hands in and hands on and building and creating. So this is the fun part. It's definitely I think all of it is the fun part, Monty, actually. But the students are really engaged in building. And so there are a few activities that we have impactful that I want to talk about. The first one is the Build It Prototyping to Test, in which students are expected to build a small part of their idea, not necessarily just tackle the full project, but it's a small part, and then add to it from there. To clarify what small part means, within Impactful, it identifies some key areas. And so the first one is visual. Which idea do the students consider to be the most visual? Empathy, which will help others the most? Space, will everything fit? And tech, is this technically feasible? So those are just some areas that they can consider when they begin to build their first prototype. And then students should plan out their prototype, considering any uncertainties they may have, procedure for testing, and then measuring the success of the prototype. And after all of the considerations are taken into mind, then they can continue to build upon that prototype. And then once they are finished, then taking a moment to stop and reflect. Perhaps some things worked, perhaps some other areas didn't work, or perhaps there's some enhancements that they need to make. But just a moment to stop and think about it before they go back into tweaking it and reworking it and building it again. Any questions about that activity? The next activity is the Build It Prototyping for Empathy. Now, this one is actually very helpful because it puts them in the user's shoes for their prototype. So they're really thinking about their mindset. How will they feel using this product? Then they will build a prototype focusing on the user and their needs, considering what will make the product helpful for the user. What features do you think that the user would actually, think that's the most important? And will the user be able to operate the product? So it really takes them out of the builder's shoes into the user's shoes. So it's a really helpful activity for that. Any questions about that one? Activity 5, Build It, Prototyping Another Idea, is where students are expected to build on an existing prototype. So of course, this one is tied into something that already exists. So it could be maybe their first prototype. Perhaps they could be visiting this activity during the iteration stage, but it's a moment where they take an existing prototype and then they add on features to enhance it. They can plan, they can sketch adjustments, improvements, and then they actually go back to rebuild it. Afterwards, they will reflect on whether or not the improvements worked, if they added value, or any other thoughts that they may want to reconsider. And again, students may find that activity 5 may be best after completing Build It activity number 3 or Build It activity number 4. Perhaps it's something similar that already exists that's out there that they want to, make enhancements on, but it's basically you're building onto something that already exists. Any other comments there?
Nope.
I have a question for people that have used design thinking in the past. Could you comment on the amount of time that you've spent at this stage of prototyping and testing, actually building out the product versus some of the other stages? I've heard from teachers in the past, sometimes they'll spend too much on the front end and then they run out of time on the back end when they actually get to this stage. And I'm just wondering what your experiences and thoughts are about the timing of the different phases.
Has anyone started the prototype phase yet? Not yet.
Probably not, because I think we heard from most people they're still
around ID8.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
And partly we intended to get these webinars in up front in advance so that you could flex your own schedule and time. But yeah. Valerie has a group that's prototyping, so that's great. I do know that there are some who are in that phase right now. So
let me say this: not only are they prototyping, I have to go out and buy some nails. I have to bring in my drill. I have to bring in an electric saw. These are boys, okay? And when I was typing, I have a lot of groups working on it. And so some of my groups are 4 or 5 members. So they're splitting the work, because when you talk about the design phase, you can go in different parts of it. So some are taking this while the others are doing this. Like I have a group, Nibnab, actually, they have it backwards, and I always forget. Gnib is what it's called, okay? Part of that group, actually, one member today was working on the 2D, 3D design, while the other 2 members who love the hands-on aspect, they apparently got their parents to have wood cut at like Home Depot, and they had, I saw their ideas, but I wasn't in my classroom yesterday, so I lost track of what they were doing. And so today they came in with nuts and bolts, plywood, wanting a saw, and I had to stop and say, what are you guys doing? And then they reminded me what their project is. I was like, oh my God. And then we didn't have the nails, so then we started to take push pins apart.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I was like, wait, stop. Let me go to Home Depot and do the purchasing, because this is like, I have to, one of them, he said, okay, my dad's gonna let me bring in my staple gun, but I can't keep it at school all day. I'm like, you can't bring these things to school. So, and I love boys the way they think, but then I also have a a 2-person team, 1 boy, 1 girl, and she's an artist. And so they're doing a kind of a solar generator kind of thing. And so she's designing it. Not only she did it on paper, and so now they're discussing working on Tinkercad to put it together in that stage, not the actual prototyping in terms of physical, but on a 3D. And so the thing was, okay, so is my 3D printer working? Which we found out it's not, because they're going to take this to a build out of their 3D. So I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm just going to sit here and facilitate. That's basically what I'm doing. I'm bringing the nuts and bolts in. So that's where I am. I couldn't even type quick enough to say this. Yes.
That's exciting. Thank you.
That is very exciting. About how much time do you think your students will spend on the prototyping phase?
Oh, I have different groups in different phases. I have a young man who hasn't even done his interview yet, and because he's working by himself, there is no let me move on, you know. In the prototyping stage, as I said, once again, because they recognize the value of we're going to work collaboratively, so everybody has a task. So while we're doing this, you guys could be doing this. So I'm going to say, and I look at the actual physical building that's going on in my classroom now. I'd like to say I'd like them done in a week, but that's not going to happen. So I anticipate that they're going to probably be at this for, and I have them an hour each day, 50 minutes really. So I figure this is going to be going on for at least another week and a half. And now that seeing, and I totally don't remember about the contest that's going on. I will actually take pictures of where they are, and I'll tweet them tomorrow so you can see, you know, and good luck to you. Figure out what they're building. You know?
I think David's comment in chat is good for everyone, and this is true. We know this to be true, but the timeline is relative to the project, the team, the semester, the level of understanding. It's a moving target. And we know that to be true. We put some time frames in for this particular challenge and are, you know, trying to help people along, but it could take less or more time for sure. Did you have a comment, David? And Maria's comment was, I hope they have at least 1 month to work on prototype phase. They need time to test, reflect, and revise. So in our plan, part of the reason why we were introducing the prototyping now is that that gives, you know, a month-ish, depending on where you are, to work on that, and then some time to work on pitch, flexing, you know, some time frames here and there. So ultimately, you get to, you know, you hopefully are helping them, your students, understand the timeline that can work for you. Each school, class, team may be slightly different, but we hope to provide enough time in the overall schedule to allow for that type of flexibility and to give plenty of time.
Okay. Well, let's continue on with the test it, which is the final area of the prototype phase. And testing is exactly what it says. It's an opportunity for others to be able to, you know, find out what works within a team's prototype. And it allows them to, I like it because it allows them to be observers of users with their actual prototype. And so the first activity that I would like to discuss is the test it, I like, I wish, what if. This is where students allow about 3 to 5 people, so 3 to 5 students, or it could be parents, you know, it's not limited to students, but they're able to test the prototype. And in the I like, the tester is able to share aspects that he or she liked about the actual prototype. I wish allows the testers to share ideas of how the prototype can be changed or improved. And in the what if, it allows the testers to suggest ideas that they could explore for future versions. And so this method frames the tester's feedback in a very constructive manner. And it enables an open discussion between the builders and the testers that can help lead to thoughtful iteration. It's important that the students listen and not argue with the tester. Students can record their feedback on a 3-column chart that we recommend in the Packful app. And ultimately, the goal is for the builders to come up with an optimal solution that works best for the users.
And it's worth noting, because we talked about this in the very beginning, but we took there's a gazillion different design thinking models, but the Stanford original 5-stage, where they had prototype and test as 2 phases, we intentionally combined them together in the app in this phase, and that's why you're seeing these elements here. We package those together into 1 phase just for simplicity purposes, but not to distract from the importance of testing by itself. So.
Okay. The next activity, Tested Feedback Capture Grid. It allows, again, students to test about 3 to 5 users. And then the students will do more telling than during the testing session. More showing than telling. This allows testers to spend more time interacting with the prototype. And in this case, the builders are more so like the passive observers. And this allows the students to do more listening as well, like listening as the users are actually working through the prototype, trying to understand how it functions. And so while they are observing the testers, they are recording their notes in a feedback capture grid, which is impactful, that has 4 quadrants, and it's labeled likes, criticisms, questions, and ideas. After they make their recordings, then they can identify key findings and top improvements, and of course, eventually iterate so that they can create an optimal solution to their problem. And so the key part I like about that is that the builders have to be quiet and just observe, which I know is kind of hard for some students to do.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, Monty, it's you. The final activity in Tested is the story, share, and capture. It allows the students to reflect on the feedback from previous test sessions. So just like the build it phase, this activity builds off of another one. So it could build off of 6 or build off of 7. And so this is where students will individually share a couple of interesting and inspiring stories observed while the users were testing their prototype. As possible insights from the feedback, they can use that to translate actionable steps, like next steps that they can use to actually iterate and rework their project so that it can, again, be the best, as far as like the performance for the user's needs. So just allows time for them to just stop and talk about and reflect about what they observed while the testers were actually using their prototype. And there are a few apps that we recommend that students can use to do this. It's Stormboard, Pinup, Cardsmith. I'm just going to add in Padlet as well. When I was in the classroom, we used a lot of that. So you can use any one of those apps to help, and we mentioned all of those in the prototypes phase impactful. Anything there?
I'll tell you what, Alina, my girls use the Stormboard, and I kept telling them, no, it's Storyboard, no, it's Stormboard. And so the boys came and said, can we have stickies? And I said, no, look what the girls are doing. So now all my groups are using the Stormboard because they love the colors that come up and it can collaborate. And so I'm like, okay, thank you. You just saved some paper.
That's good.
Yeah, because utilize a sustainable goal in just going digital. So thank you for that.
There you go. Yes, because you can use the Post-it sticky notes as well. Those will work just fine. But of course, I'm glad that, introducing students into other technologies such as Stormboard. I'm glad to hear that's working for you, Valerie.
It's working in such a way, as I said to them, look, they're being digital citizens as well. So thank you. That's an app I did not know. Now I'm going to utilize it for other classes as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for that feedback. Does anyone else have anything to add there? Okay. Well, if there are no questions there, we are going to take some time for general comments or questions that you may have regarding Packful thus far.
And we just muted everybody, so you'll have to unmute yourself again if you want to talk for the group.
Yes, I saw somebody did a Changemaker, did one really cool thing, and they created a Twitter, and they did some like little mini movie or something. It was absolutely gorgeous. Well,
Yeah, that was my class.
yeah,
Sorry.
that was great. I don't have anything like that. We would have to use the Screencastify or the WeMovie free version. Would that detract against us since we don't have that kind of software?
No. This
May I? Do you mind if I answer that?
Please.
So for my students, all of them, every single one of my students has a cell phone, and on all their cell phones, they have social media. So I told them, I said, if you want to get your message out there, you could use a medium like Twitter. Obviously, like I sent out to the parents, it has to be acceptable by them. They created an account, like a Gmail account as a group. Together, they have a main recorder. That person is like their media person. That's the person that responds to it. And they have people doing certain things. So they created the account themselves and they run it through their own social media. But the videos, they also made it through iMovie, through their phones.
I have maybe only 7 kids in each of my periods that have a phone. We're very, very Title I-ish at my school site. We don't have that many phones.
Okay. Well, no, but that's not going to count against your team at all.
Okay.
No, and in fact, I mean, I would just say, I think it's great. This part of this is collaborating, getting ideas and suggestions from each other. To directly answer your question, Jenny, I would say, we're just trying to get a sense if they can, you and or they can share some of their progress kind of globally. That helps drum up their interest and support from others and that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be in any one specific format. We have been excited to see what emerges. So in some cases, it's, pictures of drawings. Other cases, it's pictures of students actually working. Some cases, it's we've got a whole Twitter account and they're actively tweeting. It's sort of anything goes here in terms of what they feel like sharing, what you think they're comfortable sharing. It just is great to kind of spread the word and celebrate their successes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that the whole awarding of that is based on what is the most technologically advanced at all. It's really just about, oh, how cool, look at the great work the students are doing. And that's really all. It's the inspiration more than anything else. And the fact that they're willing to take the initiative to share, or the teacher is willing to take the initiative.
And I would also say that they also understand and have more empathy after this, because they said groups now that they're like, wow, we need to do something, especially now with this coronavirus. I mean, this is a conversation I cannot stop in my classroom because they've researched it. They understand that this has been around already. And so doing the Pactful and the sustainable goals, they're now becoming more, I guess, call it global citizens, because they're now, as I said, they've researched the history of the coronavirus. We're at number 19. And they're realizing that, yes, this is your world. This is your future. The things that you're doing can actually impact a generation from now. And so I think this whole, as I said before, my kids don't know there is for the method. Okay, I've not told them that part, and I won't, because I want genuine responses. I want genuine projects based on, this is our concern. This is for us. That's why I said when I tell them, I'm just doing a precursor, I'm facilitating. I'm not your teacher. I'm just looking as an outsider. What are you creating? What are you doing? And that's what I tell them. What are you doing today? Tell me, please. And they do.
That's great.
Wonderful.
And Jenny, I would just say, I mean, we started this whole challenge and with all of you along the way, and we're very clear that, our underlying and important objective is really to reach students and people who are do not necessarily have traditional access to innovation, culture, and tools. So very specifically, I want to make sure, like, if there's something additional that we can help with or provide, support for you, that's great, but it certainly should not and does not come down to any one specific tech or anything. It's really helping them learn how to think about innovation and apply the tools that they have, and hopefully gaining skills. At the end of the day, that's our true objective and something that we're trying to do. So we really appreciate that you're helping us along that path.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I just absolutely loved what Sasha's team did. I think it was Sasha's team that did. I was just like, when I looked at it and went, oh, well, we'll still do it. Yeah, the kids are really, really excited about this. And it was just like, I think what Valerie just said earlier, that they're actually becoming, oh, I actually can do something. I will be making a difference. Yes, you can.
That's great.
That is great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there are no more comments or questions.
One other comment from Maria.
Okay.
Would love to have a culminating way for all kids to see all the final projects. Students are motivated by each other. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but that is our hope too. We don't actually have a way of doing that yet in the app, so we've got some thinking to do along those lines. But part of the whole thinking, particularly when we get to the pitch phase, is that begins to create something that is the final culmination of what they can submit to us for winning, but also is in a position to potentially share with others. So we're on the same page there with that thought process. We actually do hope that, you know, we're in a place where we can help them celebrate their success. Whether they win this or don't win this,
Right.
That's not really the, you know, there's lots of great things to celebrate the work that they're doing.
Okay. Okay, well, just a friendly reminder that our next webinar pitch will be on March 31st. So we hope that you can tune in and just be prepared to bring any questions, any challenges, anything, positive feedback, any feedback to the webinar when you come in. And again, just a reminder, May 1st is the video pitch deadline. And then May 16th, we will announce the awards for the winners. So thank you so much for your time. We appreciate all of you for participating in the Changemaker Challenge and going on this journey with us.
And along the way, anything, reach out to us, let us know. We're happy to help and assist as best as possible. So, you appreciate us, we appreciate you more than you realize.
Yes.
So
Well,
thank you.
all for that. And I know my kids, as I said, they're enjoying it. So thank you for that. And if you do this next year, please include me. I'll definitely sign back up again. Okay?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. Can you say that again?
I said, if you do this next year, please include me. I will definitely sign up again.
Fantastic.
Oh, definitely. We'll do
All right,
that.
sold. Everyone heard it.
So thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.